Paul Wielgus is founder of Social Innovation, a small business that focuses on innovative engagement projects, working with a wide range of organizations, large and small, over the past 16 years. Dragonfly Coaching for Life is a project that Paul is passionate about and enables him to focus his attention on one-on-one coaching. Meditation is at the heart of everything Paul does. He is a meditation teacher and has over 20 years of meditation experience, which he directly brings into all the work that he does. Paul.
Thank you, Barry. Good morning, everyone. Is it still morning? Yes? Thank you. Cindy kindly asked me to come along and talk about Dragonfly, and I thought about this, and I decided I would provide you with the brochure so you get all the nuts and bolts of Dragonfly, so you can absorb that at your leisure. I actually wanted to tell the story behind Dragonfly, and to do that I thought I'd introduce it in two ways. One is I want to share a poem that I wrote after I had what I call my Dragonfly experience. And whilst reciting that poem, I want to introduce you to the true hero of this short session, which is an actual dragonfly called Tendril. Okay? Now I have to do something a little bit complicated here. So I'm going to read two verses, and then I'm going to invite the dragonfly Tendril to meet you. So this is the poem. The dragonfly emerges. Crack of dawn, I hear the chrysalis crack. In first moments of life, cowardly wasp attack. Falling thorns and broken wing, what cruel world, I hear you sing. With whirling mala, I beat back the threat. With Tara's mantra, my mind is set. Part the thorns, don't fall, just stay. On slender stalk, we meet the dawning day. The sun comes up, you climb its length. Each extra ray brings new strength. But with broken wing, I hear my sigh. With broken wing, can you still fly? As time slides by, with mantra chant, if this won't work, then fly you can't. Inside us both, we wonder why. If you can't fly, you'll surely die. With Tara's wind, we could succeed. Walk round her, and with her plead. Take him on your wind, let him fly. One last wish before I die. Wind blows, wings flutter, but surely not. The wind has stopped, but the wings have not. A frantic flutter and off you go. A precious moment and joyful tears flow. So I think this story is about synchronicity. So I Googled synchronicity, and the first quotation I got up on the screen was this quote by the Dalai Lama. Now, I actually don't think the Dalai Lama would ever use the word synchronicity. But if he was speaking in Sanskrit, he might talk about samapada-patika, which means dependent co-arising. But if he also spoke in his native Tibetan, he might use a word for auspicious coincidence. And that word is tendril, which is the name of the dragonfly as well. So, when I work with people on the Dragonfly program, I always ask them what their question is. That's how we determine whether we should work together. So it's on the front of the brochure. What meaningful question would you ask yourself at this point in your life and your career? And it helps me decide who I work with, and it helps them decide if they work with me. And I'll often get a list like this of characteristics, and right at the end of that list you'll see the meaning word, the purpose word coming up. Usually people of a certain age are attracted to this idea. And I'm going to introduce you to the very first ever Dragonfly Coaching for Life coachee. This guy was a senior executive in a global drinks company. And he was really suffering, and he could tick every box on there and several more as well. Because this is actually me in 1993, 22 years ago, and in need of some help, okay? And I was also at that time experiencing this irresistible urge. Okay, and that irresistible urge was to meditate. And it was so far out of my comfort zone, I couldn't believe it. And on 2 occasions, I got close to signing up for a meditation experience, and then at the last minute just backed off. And things quietened down until the following year, 1994. And I was at the Glastonbury Festival at the time with my son, George, who at that time was 11 years old. And it was a very different experience in those days. We were walking up the healing field, and right in front of me, there's a big Buddhist tent offering free meditation. And I remember at the time thinking, this has to stop. This is ridiculous. It stops now. I'm not doing this. And we continued to walk past the tent, and we walked right up to the top of the field. There's a place called the Stone Circle. And George pulled this scruffy leaflet out of his pocket, this very leaflet, and he says, Dad, can we go to this? So I hear destiny knocking 3 times. And we went back to the tent, and I was taught the mindfulness of breathing by a dreadlocked Western Buddhist monk. And everything for me changed after that, absolutely everything. It's quite ironic, a few years later, George said to me, I was talking about this, he says, you know, Dad, I didn't really want to go to the meditation. I was more interested in the talk on sex, drugs and creativity. And I'm really pleased to say he doesn't need any workshops on any 3 of those now, so it kind of worked for him as well. So I'm living this dual life now. I'm learning to meditate, and I'm also still working in a big corporation. And I don't know if any of you read this book by Sogyal Rinpoche. When I got to the page when Rinpoche talked about what the world needs now as servants of peace, or in Buddhist terms, bodhisattvas, and he listed these people, teachers, nurses, accountants, economists, lawyers, and I thought, well, why not bodhisattva business people? And at that time, I was a great admirer of the late Anita Roddick, who I think at that time was a true bodhisattva. So that gave me encouragement. But also, you know, we get Chardy Meng Tan now, the Google engineer, for goodness sake, who's spreading mindfulness throughout the business world and has a vision of world peace. So 20 years ago, that would have been unheard of. So I started to integrate meditation and spirituality into my work, but it still was not too easy to do. So I used to go into boardrooms, and rather than talk about love and spirituality, I used to go under the soft blanket of creativity and teamwork, but able to get some of these practices in there as well. But, you know, the years went on, and still this kind of tension between in business and, you know, becoming a very serious meditator. And it wasn't until 2012 when my lovely partner, Ros, and myself went to this beautiful place in Spain, to the Ossiling Retreat Centre. And we spent 2 weeks there. And in the morning, we would, in silence, do our respective practices. But in the afternoon, we would actually talk about what is it that we want to be doing in the second half of our lives. So, and for me, almost from day one, what I wanted to do was go into semi-retreat. Okay, do more meditation, teach more meditation, downshift, spend time in India 6 months a year, and really change my lifestyle. So we went through day after day after day with this at my heart. This is what I want to do, until the very last day of the retreat. And on every single day, what I used to do is I used to climb the mountain at sunrise and come to this beautiful pond. And in the center of the pond was Tara, who is a female Buddha. She's the deity of active compassion and the embodiment of the wind element. And I used to circumambulate Tara 21 times, chanting her mantra, Om Tari Tutari Ture Soha. And, you know, that was a wonderful start to the day. This day was different. I'd walked 3 paces, and I can only describe was a cracking noise. That's how I remember it. Just this big crack. And I immediately saw this dragonfly, and it was at the top of a thorn branch. It was being attacked by a wasp, and I noticed in the fullness of time it had a broken wing. And I kind of thought, I need to rescue it. So I had my mala beads, and I kind of got rid of the wasp. And then I was left for 2 hours or more with this dragonfly staring at me at the end of a thorn branch, thinking, what do I do? And the thought did cross my mind, I'll just shake it into the pond, but I thought I couldn't live myself after that. The sun was getting warmer, the dragonfly wasn't moving. So I thought, I need to go to my higher self. I need to ask for help. So I thought, well, what do? I just continue to do what I'd done every single day of that retreat. So I recommenced my circumambulation of the pool. Okay, so I'm walking around, dragonfly on the thorn branch, Om Tari Tatari Ture Soha, Om Tari Tatari Ture Soha. And then I just got to the far side of the pool and I detected a slight breeze, the slightest breeze, and I stopped. And the breeze stopped. And then there's a second noise of the day, which I've never heard before. It was a like that, as the dragonfly, its wings in motion, soared up to the sky, and then it plummeted to the pond, and it was literally a centimetre off the pond, and then it kind of flew away. And all the tension in me from, I don't know, maybe not just from that day, but from all this kind of angst about what is it I'm meant to be doing, just flowed out of me. And it took some time for that to kind of settle, and then I began to think about what is going on here. And I had this realization that it is a symbol, it's symbolic of what I am actually doing with the people that I'm working with. You know, they're emerging into the second half of life. They are a little bit broken, and they need a little bit of guidance and support to help them through, to help them into the new world. So from that was a very simple process as the dragonfly idea created itself. But I wish I could say there's a happy ending, and the answer is I'm not sure. There still is this tension between, am I going to spend time in semi-retreat, or am I going to help people, you know, particularly business people, you know, emerging into the second half of their life? And of course, it's not an either-or situation. It's a polarity, yeah? So it's helped inform my meaningful question now, is how can I integrate the nourishment of semi-retreat lifestyle with the potential to help people awaken in the second half of life through the the guidance of Dragonfly. And yeah, and I'm living with that question now and trying to balance the two. So that was one of the important outcomes which is still in the field now. But the most important part of this talk for me is that when I do speak to people about possibly participating in Dragonfly, there is only one thing that I insist with them. And what I insist is that they open themselves to the possibility of bringing mindfulness and meditation into our coaching program. And the reason that I do that is if you think about what Wielgus says, that we're all spiritual babies, that when we enter the second half of life, then we're into a new period of growth, of spiritual growth, okay, of growing our spiritual intelligence. And Wielgus says there is one thing that is most effective in order to grow ourselves spiritually, in order to grow ourselves, our spiritual intelligence, and that is meditation. So I think, you know, for me, that's the message, is that we need to bring a practice of meditation into our lives, and as coaches and facilitators, encourage all the people that we work with to bring it into theirs as well. So thank you for listening. That's my story. So, any questions? Yes?
Do you find resistance to that in your...
Do I find resistance to the idea of meditation? I've been really pleasantly surprised, and I don't know if it's because meditation is just so much the meme of the moment that people are actually looking for it. So I find resistance in the idea of once they like the idea of practicing, because that is the important thing. And so, you know, gently encouraging people to practice meditation, including myself, is the big challenge, but not as much as I anticipated. I mean, when I used to bring meditation into the workplace, you know, 20 years ago, that was a much more different. You had to kind of trick people then. Yes, we're just being creative by being quiet for 5 minutes. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions?
I've been hearing for years that the way to one way to gain acceptance in the business community of mindfulness is to take out a religious aspect of it and make it just a business tool. Are you finding over the years that there's an increased acceptance of somebody saying, well, we do this in my church, or sure, I'm open to some spiritual or metaphysical aspect, or has it been still the same?
Yeah, the question is that people finding more acceptance of meditation if it's stripped of its religious connotations? I can only answer from my experience. When I first started doing it, mindfulness and its secular nature helped people actually engage with it. What's happening now is that I think people are looking for some deeper ethical roots, and so certainly Buddhism is attractive to people who may at one time have thought, well, I just want the tools and the techniques and the science of it. So my short answer would be, increasingly, I think people want the roots and the authenticity. They still don't want the ritual practices and things like that, but they need to know it's come from a place that has substance. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
The 16 guidelines for life, could you speak a little bit about that? What is this?
Oh my goodness, okay. Yeah, I belong to an organisation, amongst others, called the Foundation for the Development of Compassion and Wisdom, who has as its patron the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama, as you may know, is very keen that we don't just offer religious practices, that there's a secular aspect of, combined with psychology. It's like the integral spirituality kind of thing. 16 Guidelines is a ethically based application of mindfulness that's based on a Tibetan text that was around core values. So it's an application to actually build some of the roots that I talked about when I answered this gentleman's question. Am I out of time, or are we okay? Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.